Hail and Kill, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, it's Norse Law back, the master of disaster. I wasn't ripping on Doghouse before. I was ripping on the guy before him. And I think Doghouse Rules is like the fifth Beatle. I've gotten more people into the show by showing them the real Jeff Tate. And anybody else, everybody loves that. But we're going to get down here to the nitty-gritty. I want to talk about what's destroying metal, and that is capitalism. Now, if you look at the monopoly that's occurred in the music industry, I think they're down to like 3 corporations now controlling the whole thing. And you look at the, less capitalistic societies over in Europe, metal's still thriving, and it's nothing here where, they push the hottest product, the latest, piece of shit to the masses. So I think that capitalism and this, money for a few people, everybody else lives in squalor thing is, definitely, it's the anti-heavy metal. So I think this is a good debate. Are you guys up for it, or you guys?
Why did it succeed in the 80s, though, when there was plenty of capitalism then?
Yeah, there was, but you had such a you didn't have the monopoly, and I think that back then there was a lot more endeavor to build these bands, and it wasn't just throw the hottest thing out there. If it sells, fine. If it doesn't, fuck it. They put money into building these bands and growing them. There was some kind of integrity there that was, anti-ethical to the ethos of capitalism. And, what you're seeing now in the music industry is capitalism incarnate.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, really. Bands like Journey, I'm not going to metal, obviously, but band like Journey had 4 albums before they ever had a hit? And
Exactly.
the record label kept putting money into them until they hit, because they saw it or they thought it was going to happen. Yeah, now you put out a record, you don't hit one shot, you're done. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. And Europe, in terms of being more socialistic and giving the art form a greater credence than just pure cash value, I think is why heavy metal is still alive. If every country was like the United States, the whole thing would be dead.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think the people want something that is relatable to their personal lives, which is what metal kind of does, but here in the States, it's not. Here in the States, it's the fucking Kardashian syndrome. Everybody wants to fucking quick hit famous. Everybody thinks that they are fucking due to be fucking special for no fucking reason. And that's why everything is trendy, including the music. The music goes in whatever's the trend of the week. That's why you see fucking stupid Justin Bieber wearing Metallica shirts on TV. Because it's trendy. Where Europe, they still like the same shit they liked 40 years ago. They're still watching Black Sabbath and Black Sabbath clone bands, and they like it.
And, I don't want to go Alex Jones on you, but, is it coincidental that, in the 60s you had the great uprising where, rock and roll had a real, populist message and revolutionary message, and, that was, obviously compromised, and you have right now the popular music is the exact opposite of what that was. Is that truly coincidental, or do these corporations get together and say, we're gonna go to the lowest common denominator and espouse the values of capitalism, which are totally inherent in rap music. It's all about, who you kill to, get the money and don't give a fuck about anybody else, which is kind of what you're saying before, which is capitalism. You don't give a fuck about anybody else. You just get that money, and that's exactly what's echoed in rap music. Whereas, in the 60s and the more revolutionary era of rock music, it was all about, it was about the mass. It was about the power to the people. And
but in the 60s, they gave a fuck. Today's kids, they don't give a fuck about, the government or how they're getting fucked over by the man or any of that shit. You had your Joan Baez's and your Crosby, Stills and Nash and everybody singing their songs about, war and the world fucking them over and whatnot, because people actually cared about social situations. These kids today, most of them, they don't give a fuck about social situations. All they care about is the fucking Real Housewives of fucking Los Angeles.
But is that art imitating life or life imitating art? That's what I'm saying. They're, the the popular culture dictates our values, in a lot of ways. And it's a corporate-owned media. It's a lowest common denominator art form that espouses the values of capitalism. Everybody for themselves, everybody take what they can get, fuck everybody else. I think that's really echoed in rap music. So I think people that are, I guess, supposedly on the left are supposed to be pro rap or whatever. I don't see that. I see that. I guess I'm idiosyncratic in a lot of ways, but I see the whole rap thing as echoing the popular culture, and I think that was, I think that was created by the popular culture, and not a reflection of people's values inherently. I think inherently people want to get along and create a more prosperous society.
Thoughts?
Well, I think that music always reflects what's going on in society. And you got to remember when there was all these protests back in the 60s, there was still a draft going on. And the young people back then didn't have a choice of joining the military or not joining the military. They were just drafted into going to war. Today, they have a choice. The draft is no longer. So there's no protest for, anti-war movements and whatnot, because you're not forced to do something you don't want to do. So that was a whole different era,
Okay.
And then this rap movement over the last almost 2 decades now of its popularity, this appeals to a more ghetto culture, even though some white kids get into it. But the attitude there is when the ghetto culture sees these rap artists, living large, as it were, and having the bitches and the hoes and the money and the cars and this and that, they want to emulate that. It almost bolsters a lifestyle. So it becomes a very popular thing. It's like, oh man, look at these guys. They went out and they don't have an education. They're not, college professors or working a corporate job. All they had to do is go out there and write their notes and rhyme, and look at, they got the bling bling and the money and the bitches and this and that, and they become gangsters and thugs, and they're tough guys, and look at, they're controlling everything, and that's what I want to be. So therein lies the popularity of rap music, and it sells big because of kids who want to emulate that.
Yeah, but I'd argue that it's a way to achieve the capitalist values of success and prosperity, for the people that can't, do it any other way. I mean, we put forth this idea that, if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, whatever, you can, achieve all this stuff, but it's, it's totally bullshit. A lot of these guys are the kids of, crackheads and, people with IQ of 80, and, they're not, no matter what, they're not going to be brain surgeons. And I think that, to go ahead and say, sky's the limit, do what you want, then we wonder why there's all this crime and everything, when we don't expect jobs to pay, and we don't expect, people to give a fuck about anybody for themselves. I don't really see how society is succeeding in any kind of way under this, capitalism. This capitalism isn't nationalism. It's a corrupted fascism where the corporations have taken over the government.
Well, I agree that there's a lot of money that influences the government and the decisions that they make and our politicians and whatnot. And I don't like that part of capitalism that, buys the politicians' votes. I don't like that. I mean, we definitely need to take the money out of that, but I don't know how to go about doing that. That's the problem. There is way too much money influencing the decisions being made by our government officials. That's definitely for sure. And I agree with that. It's a bad deal. But what are we going to do about it? That's the problem. What's the answer? I don't know what happened to Norse.
Lose him?
Yeah, well, he's out there echoing. I don't know what he was using to call, but.
All right. Am I still there?
Yeah, we're there. We're here. What happened to your phone?
I don't know. My house is weird. If I take 2 steps in the wrong direction, it becomes an echo chamber. But I don't. Again, we got to get back to why do we have an economy? Is it to Is it for a couple of rich people to siphon all the resources of this country into a overseas bank account, or is it for the greater prosperity of the people that live here? I would get back that I would say that if this country is worth anything, then it is for the greater prosperity of the people that live here. And it doesn't mean free ride. It doesn't mean that everybody gets handouts. But if business isn't working for the greater good of the public, then it's of no good to the people that live here, and the people have the power ultimately. These rich assholes don't. You might look up to them and they might think they're smart, but as a whole, I don't think they're smarter or better than everybody. Everybody else. It's the myth of meritocracy, and America's waking up to that. And so I think if these companies don't operate in the greater good of the country, then they should be taken over by the government. I think that this guy founded this company because he inherited $2 million from his dad, so he's going to enslave everybody and make their lives miserable. Fuck that. And I think that's metal should be about rebellion. It should be about creating something better for us. It shouldn't be about placating these people and becoming slaves to them. So that's my solution. If these people want to go ahead and Walmart wants to go ahead and 4 people in that family have as much wealth as half the country while they enslave everybody, I think the government should just take it over.
Well, so you believe in nationalism?
Yeah, I believe in it. I believe in capitalism as long as it serves the greater good of the population. I don't think
Do
any
you
kind of
shop at
capitalism.
Walmart?
I bought stuff there. Yeah, I mean, but again, though, we're all rats in this maze. If I want a shirt if they tell me I have to get a shirt for work, I have $30 in my bank account. Should I go buy that shirt at Walmart for $10, or am I going to, find some old woman to sew it for $100? I'm going to go buy it at Walmart.
You could go to a different place, Target, Kmart,
It's
Goodwill.
the same thing. You make a choice, but the outcome's the same. They're all going to be fucking everybody over, all these companies.
But you got to start somewhere.
Like what? So like Target might pay 5 cents more than Walmart. I mean, I don't even think they do. I think that's all I think they're also similar, but maybe Walmart I think is the prototypical example of American fascism because it employs more people in this country than anyone else.
But here, I'm just going to make the example right here between the three of us. Neeley, do you shop at Walmart?
I do not. I have not stepped foot in a Walmart in probably 4 years.
If you needed to get a shirt, what would you do?
I would either go online or I would go to one of the local shops here.
That's how it's done. You might pay more, right? $1 or $2 more.
Yeah, $1 or $2 more, but there's a Walmart not 3 miles from my house. I haven't been in there in years.
So you have online where you can get American-made shirts, or you have a local shop that's American-made?
I don't know that it's American-made or not. I haven't, boiled it down to the nitty-gritty of whether it's American-made or not. But
that's the nutshell of it, though.
Well, I get where you're coming from there, but the thing is that your point was just to buy a shirt that's cheap. And you didn't specify American-made shirt that's cheap. But my point is that there is a Walmart here in town, and I could have that choice of going there. But my choice is I don't shop at Walmart, and it's just 3 miles down the road.
Okay, but my point is that all these other places are similar to Walmart. It's all it's all the same crap. They're all getting all these products made from overseas and selling to you for cheap and paying their workers nothing
And that's a fail.
So I'm just using Walmart as an example.
But that's a failing on the government for not on Walmart. You can't blame Walmart for buying shirts for a nickel and selling them for $30. If they can do that, you can't blame them for that. What you can do, though, is blame the government for not having the same tariffs of import or of our exported goods as we have on us for our imports. They leave the thing out of balance so that we get gouged, and it makes it so that these companies can get bigger because they don't have to, when they export from their country to our country, they don't pay the same. We pay a huge markup. It's something like a 60% markup when we export to China. But when China comes here, they pay almost nothing. That's our government failing us, and that's why the goods are so much different in price.
Right, I totally agree with that. But isn't that a facet of capitalism, though? These companies get real big and powerful because they're, isn't the government regulation, which, every redneck on the right, get rid of the government regulation. These companies are, benevolent, and then you see the exact opposite.
Well,
so
let me ask.
To that is government power.
Well, let me ask you something, Norse. If you owned a store yourself, just a department store like a Walmart, if you owned a department store and you could purchase a gross of shirts at 50 cents a piece from China and bring them over here and sell them at $10 a piece, and obviously you make quite a markup on there, would you do it, or are you going to be the noble one and say, I'm not going to buy that because I don't want to make money and I don't want to buy a China made product?
Yeah, I'd honestly be the noble one. I'm like Scarface. I've got my balls and whatever that line is. I don't bust them for anybody. And it's true. I've had these management jobs where I've been told to put the worker out in the parking lot until we need them to come in, and then have them clock in and have them wait around. Until it was a Pizza Hut I was supposed to manage, and I wasn't going to do that. And to me, it's I could join the gang and try to make a few more bucks, but to me, it's more important to have some integrity and to spit venom at everywhere I look, and it makes me strong, because I'm not going to compromise who I am.
So you're an idealist.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
I don't see why anybody shouldn't be.
Well, most people get into business for profit. Some people don't. I don't understand the people who don't, but if they want to, if they think that they're serving some kind of higher or noble cause, God bless them. But most companies get into business to make a profit, and they'll do whatever it takes to make that profit, good or bad. That's just fact. It's not saying it's right or wrong. That's just fact.
Right, but these people, the profit, these companies in the United States are doing better than anywhere else in the world. At what point is the profit enough? Like if I'm making $50,000 a year, I couldn't see myself needing more than that. You know what I mean? It's just, there needs to be a refutation of the values. The value system that we have has come down from these corporate masters who've enslaved us. That's the value system we have. To say otherwise is to say that you're drunk with envy and malice, when actually you're just looking at the situation logically.
Chris?
I'm good. All
right. Well, that's just the difference between your personal ideology and the capitalist corporate business world. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, Norse. I mean, everybody has
the answer is greater worker solidarity. We have to quit looking at it like we're a bunch of fucking rats clawing over one another for a greater piece of cheese, and start looking at it like we're in this collectively, and that we have to stand together if we're going to amount to anything. You have such a large percentage of all the resources in this country going to a few, and if you don't fight back, if you don't sit there and realize that you're nothing on your own, then you're just admitting defeat. You're surrendering.
I know this. If I had to start giving most of my profit back, I'd quit. And the people that work for me would be out of jobs because I'd quit. I just wouldn't do it. I'd be like, fuck you. Start your own business.
Well, I think
I don't know. It's just the way it is, man. But I'm not making $10 million a year either.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're trading off that, if you're not going to run your own business, and then you can get a job and you can fucking,
why would I want?
And have fun, then that should be a trade that's worthwhile. Like if you can quit your job, if you can quit running your own business, and you can still, have the money to have a decent life. I think that's a trade worthwhile.
I did that. I did that, and I wasn't happy with that. I made good money. The year that I quit, I made $85,000. The year that I dropped out of corporate life, I made good money, but it wasn't enough money. It wasn't enough money for what I wanted to do for my life.
Right.
I wanted to do more. I wasn't satisfied at $85,000. I just wasn't. Right. For me, it wasn't. For me, I wanted to do more shit. I wanted to be able to go to the bar and drop $500 or fucking break up a bar and just fucking write a check and pay for it or whatever the fuck I wanted to do. You know,
right.
I wanted to do that kind of shit. And, you know, I didn't want to settle for less. Why would I want to take less when I was capable of doing more?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find idyllic, though, is that, you know, in Germany, for example, you know, you have a great unionized society, you have a great middle class. These guys, a lot of them, you know, they don't have cars, but they'll take public transportation, and they pour all this extra money into, you know, heavy metal and funding the music over there, and, you know, having all these people have a decent life. There's not, you know, a couple people that are, you know, living like gods while everybody else lives like shit. You know, it's a very equalized society, and I think that, you know, I just, you know, I look back in America, you know, when I was a kid, you know, when there was a great middle class, you go to these concerts that were everywhere, the metal concerts, the guy that was fucking a mechanic, he could go ahead and he could buy all these shirts, and you'd see him at the, you know, midnight Metallica release, and, you know, he'd be buying 3 or 4 shirts, 5 CDs, you know, all that's gone, you know, and not just because of the downloading, it's because, you know, that the class of people has been destroyed. That whole ethos, that whole, you know, driving force of heavy metal has been destroyed in this country. And I blame capitalism any fucking day.
Well, you know, again, life changes. You know, be it the economy, whether it's the, you know, changing of generations, nothing ever stays the same. It's always changing. It's ever changing.
But not for the better. We're changing towards a third world country where a couple of people have all the wealth, and the rest of us are going to live in mud huts, living in listening to Justin Bieber. So I say take it back to the old way. I say empower the worker. I say unionize. I say fight these rich fuckers with every fucking thing you got.
Right. Well, again, it's kind of a hand-in-hand cooperative between our elected leaders and these corporations, because without these corporations funding these leaders, we wouldn't have this. It's our government, as Chris pointed out, it's our government who allows this stuff to get out of control.
Right, but because of capitalism. Because
it's not
allowed to influence the government.
It's not because of capitalism. It's because our government allows too much freedom in the capitalism and is influenced by the money that there's filtered back to them for the favors that they do.
Exactly, but you're talking about these regulations that are, you know, attributed to the liberal, you know, government and growing big government, and that's the only way to remedy it, is to grow the government of the people, you know, the democratic government. So, you know, I'm not a bleeding heart, you know, social liberal or anything. It's just, you know, it's just the dry mechanics of the whole thing are, unless there's government interference between the feudalism that's emerging, you know, the average there's not going to be a middle class. You know, we're going to go the way of these, you know, hijacked governments in the third world where, you know, we're all living in mud huts and a few people have all the wealth, and, you know, because of the ignorance of the people saying, like, well, you can't disparage him, you know, he worked hard to get it. You know, that's all mythos, all meritocracy. It's all myths of meritocracy. Yeah, people may have worked hard to get, you know, to get money and to get to the top, but, you know, if they're doing it by putting people into poverty, then it's not worth anything to the country as a whole, and people need to wake up to that.
Well, you're looking toward people to be of more of a charitable nature, and unfortunately that doesn't seem to resonate with most people.
No, I'm not. I know humanity, you know, human beings are, you know, as a whole, you know, pieces of shit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they need to recognize the force of the population. The people need to become smart. They need to stand together. They need to fight back. They need to say, you know, if some guy says he's going to hire me for a job and he wants me to work in his little fucking factory for 60 hours a week and he wants me to live in a hut, that, you know, he's going to feel the collective sword of the masses. You know, he's going to, you know, burn his fucking shit down. You know, like, you just can't fucking enslave people because you got a little money to put into something. That's the point.
Right. I get where you're coming from. Well, unfortunately,
we do have the power. You know, like you know, sit there and, you know, like this whole like propaganda to make, you know, any kind of collectivism look weak, and like, oh, you can't just go in there and work your way up. That's not the case. That we have the power. We if we stand together, nobody will walk out if you're not treating us fair. And that's what people have forgotten.
Right.
That's what these strong middle class affluent countries like Germany have not forgotten.
Sure.
That those people are on the board of directors. The workers are on the board of directors. They're making decisions for the company. Over here, you're a peon. And just look at it, boss a manager the wrong way, you're out on your ass. I was working the other day. This girl worked 12 hours. She made $30, and she said she was complaining about it. And the manager came over and said, "When are you going to stop thinking about how much money you make? And when are you going to start thinking about the guest?" That's the kind of shit I do. I'm ready. I'm actually, once I find another job to have in my back pocket, I'm going to actually try to launch a labor strike.
Well, basically what you're trying to describe there is something that was, discussed way back in the 1500s as creating a utopia.
I don't think so. I mean, whenever you think about, all the conservative propaganda is, like, we need to make this country great again. But this country was only known as being great from the New Deal, from FDR. That's what created the middle class, were the new regulations and the unions. Before that, you had the age of the robber barons. The government broke up those monopolies. So before that, you had, everybody, poor as fuck, and a couple rich people having all the wealth. And then the government broke up those monopolies. FDR's New Deal came in and created the middle class. So when they talk about America being great again, it's because of these, so-called liberal, components of the country that were intact. And since Reagan, we've gotten rid of all that. And now you have, masses and squalor with a few people with all the wealth.
Well, that just goes back to what I said earlier, that it's ever changing. It sometimes it changes for the better, sometimes it changes for the worst. Do you think the times during the Depression era, those weren't very good times? Then we went into the war era for World War II. Then we came out of World War II and went into the 50s, which was a very prosperous time. Then we got into the 60s, which was a very chaotic time. A lot of upheaval during that time. Then we got into the 70s, which was sort of a time of people starting to distrust the government. Then we got into the 80s, which was a very prosperous time for the country once again. Then we got into the 90s. I mean, it's always changing. It's forever changing.
Yeah, but you had prosperity for the middle class till Reagan, and then Reagan started liberalizing our trade policies because of the hijacking by international businessmen. So by Reagan, liberalizing his trade policies and having us compete with the worker in Vietnam for 60 cents an hour, and then Clinton taking it further with NAFTA and all these bogus trade agreements, destroyed the middle class, and now with the TPP, which is being swept under the rug. I mean, do you know how insane the TPP is? The TPP says that we turn over sovereignty of our government to foreign corporations. Multinational corporations can sue the government if we raise the minimum wage or do anything that cuts into profits. Now, conservatives are always big on national sovereignty. They hate the UN, et cetera. But they have no problem with turning over the economy to foreign corporations. It makes no sense at all. But Obama and the Republicans are going straight forward on this. And the one era of rejection of this is the progressive end of the Democratic Party with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, etc. And I find that, very ironic, if you're going to say that, these guys are anti-national or whatever, they're, a bunch of liberal pussies or whatever. They're the ones that are standing up for, the sovereignty of this country. And I mean, this TPP is unreal. We're competing with Malaysia, where they actually still have forced slavery. I mean, it's just being swept under the rug. I mean, the corporate media isn't even reporting on it. The corporations own all the media, mainstream media, and it's not even being reported. And is there any greater testament to what a fascist nation this is, that people don't know about the TPP, but they're sitting around hearing about some cup at Starbucks or whatever? I mean, it's unreal.
Well, again, it's all a distraction.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I don't know that there's an answer for you, Norris. I appreciate your thoughts and everything, but I don't know what the answer is.
Right. Well, if a couple people getting interested and it was good radio, then it was worth it.
All right, man.
All right, hail, kill, brother.
Hail and kill.
Peace out.
Yeah, really.